Nice one, Cyril.
Welcome to Nice One, Cyril. Extra time. With me this morning, as usual, Kevin Acott. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Simon. Good morning.
We're a bit chipper, aren't we? And rightly so. 2 games without losing, which is in itself extraordinary.
Yep.
But I think much more importantly, after Liverpool, and we talked about Liverpool on our latest big pod, and that was a good sort of bloody-minded performance. This performance against Atletico the other night was really something, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, I think my chipperness was 11 out of 10, during the match and immediately after. I can't remember the last time I felt that good watching us. It was, literally probably a couple of years. I think pre-Ange. And it just felt like now I've remembered why I love football and why I come here and why I pay this extraordinary amount of money to watch this stuff, because it felt so good. And I was with my daughter, and, usually I feel guilty when I'm with my daughter watching Tottenham because, I've let her down and condemned her to a life of misery. But I actually felt proud as a father that I'd given her this possibly brief present.
I was going to say it might be fleeting, but at least you
Yes.
had this moment with your daughter, and that's something. It was, unfortunately, I couldn't make the match because I wasn't well, but I watched it on TV. What was, I think, so notable was the fact that they played as a team. And I know that sounds a bit trite, but everybody seemed to know what they were supposed to be doing. They were passing to each other, which sounds extraordinary again, but we haven't seen much of that. There was energy, there was drive, there was commitment. And I think the thing that struck me more than anything was belief. Because I don't think at any point they thought, you know what, we could win this, we could go through here. And I think right up until the second equaliser, I think they really believed it.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think there was this sort of collective optimism, which is extraordinary. And some of the optimism comes from the sort of previous sort of years of misery. It's a sort of slightly dashed optimism, I think. And if you look at the 2 matches overall, if things had gone our way, if a couple of decisions had gone differently, if the pitch wasn't like the pitch was for the away match, we could have won that comfortably. But even on the night of the second leg, there was a period where it looked like we could win it. We always looked vulnerable, I think, to them attacking.
Yeah.
All the way through, we looked vulnerable, but we still looked the better team. And, it was just, we were just playing proper football, like you said, like a team, like people who had played together before, who respected each other, who trusted each other, which was brilliant.
Yeah, you talk about the vulnerability, and yes, I agree with that completely. But I suspect also, there's 2 things really there. One is Atletico, a good team, and you're going to look vulnerable against a good team. But also, we were playing to win. We weren't doing the Thomas Frank, what are they going to do to us? We weren't doing that. We were just thinking, how can we hurt them? Don't care who they are. How can we hurt them? There were some notable performances. I think the standout for me, and I actually put this to our WhatsApp group after 30 minutes, Archie Gray, I thought was imperious throughout. It was a performance of staggering maturity and command and acceptance of responsibility. He's 20, this kid.
Absolutely. And I think I've been one of those who's been slightly sceptical about him, not critical of him, because he's been messed about so much and his attitude has always been spot on. But I haven't been totally convinced of his quality until that match. And I think he brought quality as well as attitude and commitment and energy. He was such a big part of us being creative. And, we've been desperate for that. And some of it's about him being played in the right position. So some of it goes down to the manager again and maybe to, who's available, who's not. But he showed what a potentially great player is going to be.
And there were some other good performances. Well, very hard to find a bad performance. I was quite impressed with Radu, who has struggled let's face it, since he came back into the side on a kind of a needs-must basis. Struggled at centre-half, but I thought as a right-back, I'm not quite sure where he was playing for the entire match, but he looked solid. He looked less exposed, and he looked like a guy who didn't feel as exposed and therefore was more confident with his play and distribution. The other guy who probably merits a mention is Tell, who was lively throughout. That miss when he had a couple of blokes in the middle that might have swung things. That would have been 2-0, I think. But overall, he brings that fantasy and creativity. And again, he's like Bergvall in the sense that he's a young kid and he doesn't give a fuck. I'm just going to play my game. And he did. And it was a really, delight to watch.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I was actually standing there feeling slightly guilty about the degree to which we slagged Radu off in the last pod. I mean, he was terrible.
He was.
But yes, again, more comfortable position for him. He did look solid. And I think, I'm not sure he's ever going to be an automatic starter for us once we're sort of fully fit. But he did really well. Tell, absolutely. I mean, the move that led to that Tell miss was a brilliant team move. Gray was really fully involved in that. And but these are the things that hopefully he learns and improves on.
I was going to mention Xavi Simons because I thought in the first half he was very ambitious and kept losing possession, but at least trying. In the second half, he just grew into the player that we've always believed he can be.
Yeah.
Fabulous goal. And again, that was not just the finish, the way it was that Archie got involved, and it was fantastic. Yeah. But overall, you could see what it meant to him, that goal, and he was still fighting. Even, we scored the penalty in virtually the last minute, and he still ran and got the ball. He still wanted to see if we could get another couple. That was a great performance.
It really was. It really was. And again, there's for me, there's just a sense of sort of vindication in a way, because I feel I've been sort of going on about how good he is, but he hasn't really been giving me much evidence for that. It's just that sort of sense of just seeing the occasional thing that is done that suggests that this boy is of real quality, and it almost came together. I think he's still, he's probably 75% in that match of what he can be, but he showed there is something special about him.
Also, the other really encouraging thing for me was the return of Bergvall, who I think the last time he came back from a longer spell out, it took him a few games to find his sharpness and his that sort of drive that we've come to love. But I thought he stepped straight into. Yeah. He just looked like the old Bergvall, confident, cocky, and doing stuff that with no hesitation, no concern about the occasion or the responsibility. He just started playing, and I thought that was really encouraging. And I thought Udogie also, good to see him come back. I hadn't realised, because we see so little of Udogie, I hadn't realised how huge he is. He's a big boy, isn't he?
He is. Yeah, I mean, I think Bergvall, I like the way we're now pronouncing it correctly, aren't we? Thanks to Julie.
Yeah,
Bergvall.
Well, of course. Yeah. It only took us 6 months. Come on.
He just came on and immediately started playing really well. And, no one could have expected that, I think. I thought that was another incredible positive. And Udogie equally, not equally, but Udogie himself fitted in pretty well when he came on. It is hard. It's really hard to think of anyone who didn't have either a good game or an excellent game.
I feel bad about omitting certain players here, as though they weren't as good. But as you say, everybody did their bit. So it begs the question: is Igor Tudor getting through to these boys? We started terribly under him, shipping goals left, right, and centre. He was complaining about a lack of fitness and lack of this and lack of I don't know who. He just sort of dark comments about someone's to blame here, and it felt like deflection. Right, don't blame me. But probably from halfway through the away leg with Atletico through Liverpool and again to the second leg, something seems to be happening. It's not just formation, is it? It's not just who's playing where, because we didn't even have Solanke or Richarlison against Atletico in the second leg. So, is he getting through?
I think he is. I think the evidence is there on the pitch. I think he seemed bewildered when he first came to us. It's like someone says, I don't know if you have an operation and someone says, that's going to be painful. And you go, yeah, I know it's painful. It's painful for everyone. And you don't realise until you're actually experiencing the pain just about it.
Yeah.
It is. And maybe I'm rewriting history a bit here, but I think maybe that explains some of his not entirely great comments and some of his mistakes in those first two or three games. I think it'd be very hard to argue he didn't manage that match against Atletico very well, because he did. He absolutely did.
Absolutely did, yeah. Notable how well they all play, but how good the connections between the players were. And as I said at the top of the show, the belief, that's difficult when you've got a bunch of players who are stripped of confidence, partly through poor performances, one on top of t'other, but also, because of the way we were playing under the previous manager, which gave them no room to express themselves, and it was kind of almost inward looking, and they couldn't see out. Suddenly it looks like, without going berserk about it, that they're playing. They've been given the freedom to play. They look like they're running hard, and this belief is coursing through them. And that brings us then to Sunday's match against Nottingham Forest. Now, ordinarily, in a normal season, we'd say, that's only Forest, at home, 3-0. But notwithstanding that they're not playing that well at the moment, Forest, this is an absolutely key match. And the question is, do the nerves creep back in because it's a 6-pointer? Does the team go back into its shell, or have they acquired over a period of time with Igor the belief and the confidence that's where they stride out on the pitch and say, fuck, it's only Nottingham Forest, let's go?
I think it's a test of how much things have changed and whether they've genuinely shifted, and whether Igor is genuinely, sort of in their confidence. But I watched Forest last night, and my positivity slightly went down a bit. They sort of looked all right in the European match. I'm not going to try and pronounce the team they were playing, but foreign chaps anyway. And they looked all right. I mean, they didn't great. As we know, they've got 3 or 4 good players, not all of whom were playing the whole match last night. It's not going to be easy, but my sense is us at our best, which is how we were almost against Atletico, against them at their best, we will win. And particularly with a good atmosphere, and there is going to be a good atmosphere as well.
Absolutely. I think it's how we stride out there. How do we start the game? Do we go out and get on the front foot? And even if we concede one, do we go into a shell, or do we say, fuck this, we'll get 2? Which was the attitude, wasn't it, against Atletico the other night, that it was, okay, they scored, we still need another couple. And they were never at any point saying, all right, well, let's lie down and go home. So I'm quite excited about the Forest game. I think if we win it, then I would start to feel, as confident as you can feel as a Spurs fan, that we're going to find our way out of this mess. A draw wouldn't be terrible, because we keep our distance from them at least. A defeat might be calamitous and might burst this entire bubble. So what are you going for? What's your sense? Given that you're always wrong, can you say that we're going to lose this?
Yeah, given that I'm always wrong, I'm going for a 3-0 win for Forest. No, my feeling is a slightly scraped 3-2 or 2-1.
I kind of have a 2-1 in my head. I don't know why, but hopefully it's 6-0. With Spurs, you can be 6-0 up at 85 minutes, and you think, well, we might win this. But anyway, we shall see. Well, look, that's it for today. Do give us a follow on Twitter at Nice One Cyril Pod. We've got a website, www.niceonecyrilpodcast.co.uk. All the episodes are on there. We're all over social media, and why not subscribe to the podcast on the podcast platform of your choosing? Just quickly, quick word about Danny Kelly, because he announced this week that he's seriously unwell, and I don't always agree with Danny Kelly, but I think he and his colleagues produced the second best Spurs podcast by a mile. View from the Lane. It is a great podcast, and he is a consummate broadcaster, and we can only wish him the very best and a full recovery. There we are. That's it from us. And we'll be back on Monday. Until then, come on, you Spurs.
Nice one, Cyril.